If you want to add volume to your workout, get a little bit more of a pump, add different angles. Machines allow you to do this easier than free weights because they're less stressful on the body. They just are. Like if I go and do a back machine workout with 3 different exercises, even if I'm doing compound lifts or whatever, it's just not as taxing on the body. I'm going to recover faster. It's going to be shorter recovery period. So if I'm like, if I'm training hard and I'm pushing my body limit and I want to add an additional 5 sets to my routine, I could either do 2 sets of a free weight exercise or 1 set, or I could add 5 sets of machines, which has some value. All right, real quick, here's the giveaway. MAPS Aesthetic. This is our bodybuilder MAPS program. One of you will get it for free. Here's how you can enter to win. Leave a comment below in the first 24 hours that we drop this episode. Subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications. If we like your comment, we'll notify you. You'll get free access to MAPS Aesthetic. One more thing. The sale that we're running right now, the MAPS Power Bundle, which is MAPS Powerlift combined with MAPS Strong, retails at $300. The sale is $79.99 for that bundle. So one payment, $79.99, MAPS Strong, MAPS Powerlift. It ends in 24 hours. So when we drop this episode, you have 24 hours to take advantage. After that, we're not going to bring this sale back probably for an entire year. So if you're interested, head over to mapsmarch.com. Here comes the rest of the show. I got a DM the other day from someone that kind of misunderstands our position on exercises and exercise equipment. So, in the past, we've been, mischaracterized as like being anti-cardio, which we're not. Tremendous value there. But another one that I get is that we're anti-machine, that we don't like machines at all, that they're a waste of time, that there's no value, which is totally not true at all. Machines have a place.
I love robots. Everybody knows that.
Not that kind of machine.
Not only do they have their place, I believe there are times when they're superior.
Yes.
So it just, just depends on the context. I think that's anything we say. This is just social media world now. Like you say a statement and then someone's going to take it out of context and then, oh, I can't believe you guys are anti-cardio. How can you be anti-machines? It's like, no, we're trying to teach the audience the hierarchy of things. And many times free weights are far more superior for most people, but there are always exceptions to the rule. And there's absolutely times where I had clients where we spent more time on machines than we did free weights.
Yeah, so when you're talking to the average person, it's usually the conversation usually has to go around that, right? You're depending too much on machines. You're not getting the value you can get out of free weights. But that doesn't, again, like you said, Adam, that does not mean there's no value. And in some cases, machines are actually superior. I find tremendous value with machines in certain circumstances. Now, I think we should go back a little bit and kind of talk just very briefly on the history of equipment. Obviously, the first forms of resistance training equipment or strength training were free weights. People lifted heavy things. Dumbbells and barbells and kettlebells, actually, was what dumbbells used to look like. That's what people used first. Machines came a little bit later, and they were an attempt to create something superior to weights in terms of results and safety. And so you saw them start to invent things. And back in the day, there weren't big machine manufacturers. In fact, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Joe Gold, who started Gold's Gym, most of the equipment that they had in Gold's Gym, he made. This is how he became.
Oh, so it was. I thought Arthur Jones was the first.
Arthur Jones created Nautilus, and that was the first. That was one of the first like company
commercial ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you know who was responsible for like the first machines?
I don't know the very first machines, but I do know Joe Gold was known for the machines that he co-made and put in his gyms. So like low cable pulley row and a cable crossover, and he would design them, put them together, put them in his gyms, and this obviously gave him an advantage over other gyms at the time, which there wasn't much competition.
Well, also too, I mean, with the rise of bodybuilding, wasn't it the focus of it was how can we create an exercise machine that can really help to kind of refine and target these muscle groups, because like that, it was starting to kind of segment down to, I want to build and develop my delts, a little more specifically. I want to, kind of hyper focus on certain areas of my body more. And then, as a result of that, they started to get it like, innovate and create a lot of these types of machines.
I thought that didn't happen until later. I was under the impression that the original introduction to machines to the general population was primarily for like rehab and physical therapy. It was designed to be a safer way to train. and that was the original introduction.
That was when that's how they were. I guess maybe first broadly used, but commercially it was like Arthur Jones Nautilus equipment.
Right, when it was more popularized with the general public.
Oh, look, Doug pulled up some really old machine pictures. Now, and I think these are the 1940s and 50s, and maybe even a little bit before. The thing is, though, these were not widely used at all. Now, now to be fair, neither were free weights. But even among the population of people that use free weights, machines were extremely rare. Like,
well, you saw gyms with kettlebells, ropes, and Indian clubs and things like that, where it was more of like a gymnasium where everybody was climbing on ladders and doing things like that, like way back in the 20s, 30s, 40s.
Actually, have you ever seen videos of some of the first popular weight loss machines?
Yeah,
they shake the hell out of your.
It's like
your handles,
like a conveyor belt thing wrapped around your waist.
You know, my grandma owned one.
No way!
I swear to God. When we were kids, and I don't know what they did with this. In fact, I should.
You know what he's talking about, right, Doug? That conveyor belt looking thing that
right.
And
it's the famous commercial. I don't know if it's Maxwell or it has the guy with the goggles on and the helmet, the leather helmet, and he's like this big fat guy, and it's like shaking, and then a cannonball hits him.
Oh, that's right.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. So my grandma had one, and I remember you turned it on. Exactly what it was. It was like a canvas kind of belt, and it would and if you put it around your waist. I think the theory was it shook the fat off your body. They also had these
shake it out of you.
They also
just
had
a
these
nasty rash.
They also had these roller machines. So you would stand and it would have these rollers and they would roll up and down your thighs or up and down and it was like to smooth out your fat. Like if you were a piece of clay, I guess. So it was massage or whatever.
It's pretty interesting. I found these vintage photos, and they're from the 1800s.
Oh, yeah.
So there was this guy named Gustav Zander from Stockholm, and this was back in 1865. And you can see some of these things are fairly legit machines. Some of them are kind of crazy, but for example, this one, look at that.
That's a curl machine.
Curl machine.
Yeah. Now again, these were. I mean. Free weights were unpopular. This is even more like nobody had access to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, super novel.
Maybe Doug,
I actually did not know this existed back then.
Maybe Doug, you could look up commercial gym equipment, like first popular commercial gym equipment. So
that's definitely Arthur Jones.
Well, what he did was Arthur Jones went the performance muscle building route, and he became somewhat popular through his Colorado experiment, which I brought up on the show before. He took Casey Viator, who at the super genetically gifted bodybuilder. I think he won Mr. Universe or America, which back then was a big bodybuilding competition, at the age of like 18. And Casey Viator had come to him totally deconditioned, lost lots of muscle. He had an illness. I don't remember what it was. And Arthur Jones said, I'm going to train you just purely on Nautilus equipment. And he also had other people in there. And we're going to look at your results throughout the process. Now, he also employed this super high intensity training technique where he would train you to failure and beyond, very low volume, but it was like balls to the wall type crazy. Anyway, the results that people got were insane. It's still disputed today. I forgot how much muscle Casey Viator gained in a month. It sounds like impossible. But nonetheless, that kind of got things a little popular. And then still in the 70s, you didn't have a lot of bodybuilders using machines except for maybe a low cable pulley row and maybe like cable crossover. Otherwise, they didn't use machines. The 80s, you started to see more machines. And a lot of it had to do with the commercialization of gyms. So you go to a gym and machines looked sleek and advanced. Then, of course, they used machines to attract women, which were that's a big portion of the consumer population. Hey, these aren't going to make you bulky like bodybuilders use these machines.
Were they a big consumer back then?
Women, they were a big consumer base that gyms were not tapping into. And so,
that's what you mean by that.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like they were a big consumer within gyms already, and I'm like, that's what kind of started to attract.
There's a lot of things that played a role.
Used to put purple and pink mats.
Exactly.
It's so stupid.
I mean, the aerobics classes exploded. That was a lot of women. Because, I mean, they were smart. They looked at the consumer base and said, we're just attracting dudes. We're not going to make much money. There's a lot of reasons why gyms took off and became a potential successful business model. But that was one of them. It's like, we're able to attract women, to our facilities. And the ones that did that well did the best. And so that's kind of how machines came into the fray, and more people started using them. But I do, before we get into why or when machines are better than free weights, we should talk about why, just quickly, free weights, we often praise them above machines. Now, for me, one of the main reasons why I tend to advocate for free weights more often is the carryover that you get from the strength that you get in the gym with free weights carries over more so to the real world than machines. And mainly because free weights, when you're moving things or lifting things in the real world, it's always free. You're never lifting something on a track or with a cable. It's always a couch, a box, your kid. And free weights are more like that than machines are. And you see more carryover. Like if you get stronger with a barbell squat or an overhead press, you're going to see that carry over to the real world more than you will.
It'd be nice if things in the real world were nicely balanced and followed a track and predictable and all those types of things. But in reality, I mean, your body has to do all kinds of things to pull off some of these movements, to be able to stabilize, to not rotate, to get the action out of the muscle, to lift. And so it is a different experience, and it is something that's very valuable in terms of translating towards real world strength and then also like athletic pursuits. But I mean, machines definitely fit a gap that's there in terms of being able to add volume, apply more safe ways of loading, that type of thing.
Did you guys know what like was the first machine that got really, really popular of all the machines? Like was there like a leg, like did the leg press come and then that like kind of blew everybody's mind? Because we're looking at stuff that goes all the way back in 1800, and that obviously wasn't popular. It wasn't even popular in the 40s and 50s. And then all of a sudden Arthur Jones starts to build them in the gyms and stuff that get really popular. Were there like a couple of them that really started to take off?
I can only base it off of what I know from the bodybuilding routines of the 70s. That's when machines started to kind of come in, and it was lat pull down, low cable pulley row. Cable crossovers were the most commonly used machines among bodybuilders.
Leg press, probably, right?
Leg press is a little bit, but that started coming later. I mean, bodybuilders in the 70s all squatted. I mean, they all did barbell squats on a regular basis. What's up, Doug?
Yeah, one of the early ones is the Smith machine.
Yeah.
Back in the 1950s, it was born because of Jack LaLanne's assertion that some form of machines was needed to safeguard members from injury.
Oh, Jack LaLanne.
Yeah, and then the other one is this guy named, I believe it's Zinkin.
Well, while you're on the Smith machine, I've said something that I haven't fact checked myself about, and I was told, or I remember either being told or reading a long time ago that originally Smith machines were designed for upper body only.
Interesting.
I don't know. We'll see
for the
what
reasons
Jack
that you
says.
said, exactly what you said, but the original intent was purely for upper body.
Interesting. I know Jack LaLanne had some of the first gyms. In fact, he had a couple here in the Bay Area, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. I think it was called Grecian. I think that might have been one of his gyms. I don't know if you guys have heard that.
Here's him on a Smith machine there.
Look at that.
Doing a squat.
Now, Jack LaLanne is, he's the godfather of fitness.
That's Jack LaLanne right there?
Training.
Yes.
Oh, that's a young Jack LaLanne right there. Wow.
By the way, if anybody's never heard of him, look him up. In his 50s, he set a world record in push-ups and pull-ups. I think it was 1,000 each. That nobody touched for decades.
Yeah.
In his 70s, he swam from San Francisco to Alcatraz,
pulling a boat with his teeth,
pulling 70 people on rowboats with his teeth, hands and feet shackled. And it's on video, by the way. You can look this up.
So
and
great.
see. It's so insane.
Another name that comes up is Harold Zinkin, who created the Universal Machine.
There you go. That's the one that was in that's the high school.
Is that
gym.
the cable one that has,
Yes.
or the one that has the seated row, the military press?
Universal. So on each side, there's a
yeah,
station.
yeah, I do remember
like
that.
a circuit.
That was at my high school.
Those were so crappy. They were so crappy. They're the worst machines of all time. They were so dumb, so bad. But yeah, so the carryover is one of the main reasons because, consider this, like we all trained for the most part, I'd say at least 90%, maybe correct me if I'm wrong with you guys, but 90% of our clients were everyday people.
Yeah.
They weren't fitness fanatics or bodybuilders or athletes. And everyday people, they like to look good. They want to be fit, but they don't want to be strong in the gym and then weak in the real world. Like that's a terrible, that's almost like a waste of time. Like, okay, I'm strong in the gym. That's nice. But then when I go lift the couch or a box, I hurt myself or I'm not strong. Like I want that to carry over into the real world because I don't know about you guys, but when my clients would come back and say, man, Sal, I was moving and I felt so strong while I was moving. Or, I had a female client once tell me that she put her suitcase in the overhead compartment for the first time and she felt so good about that. Or, I was playing with my kids at the park and I felt so stable. I haven't felt like that in a long time. So free weights just give you that carryover, and it's mainly because the world is made up of free objects. And so when you're moving objects in the real world, it's more closely related to free weights, which is what makes it, in my strong opinion, one of the reasons why you get such good carryover.
Yeah.
The next thing I would say is this. Now, and this is an interesting part of free weights. We talk a lot about safety with machines. Here's where machines can get dangerous, and I've seen people hurt themselves on machines because of this. When you're using a machine, you have to follow the path of the machine. So if you're taller or shorter, or your range of motion is compromised for some particular reason, and you're pushing or pulling or twisting on a machine that's on a track, you have to follow the track. And if that track is inappropriate for your body, that becomes a problem. Free weights, I could train someone that's 3 feet tall, 7 feet tall, someone who's got long arms, short arms, and whatever. The free weights follow the person. And that makes free weights super valuable, and probably one of the reasons why free weights in bands are more often used in with physical therapy than
Well, I think that's the most valid critique of the Smith machine, in my opinion. Like, I mean, we've talked about the Smith machine before, and using it for upper body, not so bad because you can do things like a military press or something where you're pretty much staying in the same path. But doing something like a squat or a lower body exercise, like, your spine doesn't look like that.
You're not going straight up and down.
Yeah, and you can't, like when you do a free weight squat, the bar path, yes, we're targeting it to be as close to straight up and down as possible, but it's not realistic.
It's unnatural.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you end up forming your body into an unnatural position just to follow the track. And that's been a big critique of mine of it. And also, too, it's just, I mean, from just kind of one of those perspectives, it's a lot easier in terms of like a bench press because you're taking away a lot of the stabilizing mechanisms
you just have
that
to push.
are involved. You just push.
Yeah.
And so, which is great, for somebody that might have issues or injuries or things that are inhibiting that from happening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you have to know what you're working with and the reason why you're doing it is everything.
Yeah, the 2 leg exercises that I would, not often, but I may have done a few times with a Smith machine would be a modified squat, look more like a hack squat. Because of the bar path, you're under the bar, your feet are out in front of you.
Yeah.
So you're going straight up and down with your back, your feet are in front, so it's more like a hack squat. And then the other one would be a stationary lunge because, again, the bar goes up and down. And sometimes I would use it to teach someone how to lunge, and they would hold on to the Smith machine for balance when doing it. But like a squat or like try deadlifting on you can't deadlift on a Smith machine.
Well,
just
you
doesn't
can.
work.
It's just
It's not going to be a deadlift.
It's
Right?
kind
I mean, people
pointless
do.
is
There's a
all.
lot of people that do that stuff. I mean, I always feel for the Planet Fitness people. There's a lot. Planet Fitness does not have any barbells like that, so you can't just go over and do deadlift. There's not like a deadlift platform there or anything. So you have people that are even following MAPS programs that have a Planet Fitness, and then so they've had to make that modification and use the Smith machine.
Yep.
So yeah, I've never been a real fan of that. As a kid, I'm tall. I was 6'3", right? So I remember going to the gym and
Not fitting, right?
Yeah, and like like some gyms have like where it'd be like colored where my knee joint and where my ankle, and so you can kind of line it up, and nothing ever lined up right for me because I just didn't have that average body type that the machines were built for.
I remember talking to I can't remember his name. He was one of the founders of Hammer Strength. And we were talking about machines, and Hammer Strength took the market by storm. Another machine, plate loaded.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed Hammer Strength machines.
Well, what they did with Hammer Strength is they combined. They tried to make
free
a machine,
weight with the machine kind of.
Yeah, they tried to make it emulate free weights in many ways, and it became very popular. But I remember talking to him, and he said, here's the deal with machines. A lot of people don't know this, but they're designed for a 5'9" male who weighs around 170 pounds.
That makes a lot of sense. I was going to bring that up because like I'd have clients that were a bit on the shorter side or, over 6 foot. And it was just like such a pain to try and conform their body to try and make it work. It just, regardless of how many notches they had to kind of pull the pads out to help you stabilize, it was just, it didn't work.
There were machines that have to hand the bar to a client because they couldn't get to it because they were too small or too short. So yeah, that becomes an issue. And again, they're designed for the average person. So there's a bit of limitation there. And if you're outside of that, then what happens is the machine is designed to be perfect for a particular size. So then it becomes less and less perfect because your size doesn't necessarily fit to it. And so this is why, again, like for example, like some of the worst ones, like one of the worst ones is you ever do the seated tricep extension, which if you fit in the machine, I'm gonna tell you something, it's a great tricep exercise.
Yeah.
Rarely do I ever fit. My arms are too big.
Like way up here.
I'm getting in there and it's all weird.
Shoulders are
and,
too broad to fit in the thing.
so it just didn't work. But with free weights, it doesn't matter how long my arms are or how wide my shoulders are. It follows my body, and so used properly, it can be more appropriate.
The other thing that free weights give you that you can't really get from machines is the stability component.
Totally.
Which, I would make the case, especially as a trainer training a new client, would make the argument. And this is where probably most of our argument comes from of why free weights are so superior.
Yeah.
Because most clients that we train, the very kind of first phase you're in is stability.
Just learning how to balance.
Yeah,
and
stability is kind of the foundation of programming for clients, and so they have to learn that first. And if you go straight into machines, you don't get that. And I think that is a very limiting factor for a lot of people starting out.
It's a great point because the thought process for a trainer initially when you have a beginner is that you want to go with the safest type of a workout, and machines do provide that. However, it's not addressing a lot of these glaring issues that you're seeing in their movement patterns. And, free weights are much better at that in terms of like having to face those types of challenges for their muscles and for their joints. And it's critical that you do that then, because then we build upon that and we get stronger, more muscular. And if we don't address those imbalances and issues and dysfunction, it's going to really result in a bigger issue down the road.
Would you guys make the case that you actually increase your risk of injury by getting strong without addressing stability first?
Of course.
Yep.
Like
because now you've got more force capability with the same or slightly better or even worse stability than before.
Yeah.
So now the risk of injury, I mean, let me put it this way. If I had the stability of a 15-year-old kid with my ability to produce force, I am going to hurt myself.
Well, it's like having, a terrible steering or suspension and then giving a car
an additional
extra
100 horsepower.
200 horsepower and thinking that it's not going to increase the risk, right? So
Totally. I remember learning this, so when you first become a trainer, I'm sure you guys remember this, there's a lot of lessons you learn because of the mistakes you make with your clients.
Definitely.
I had this kid that I trained, this 15-year-old kid. It was one of my first clients, and I'll never forget him because he eventually became a personal trainer. But anyway, I thought he's a kid, and if you've ever trained a teenager, they have the worst stability, especially overhead pressing. Part of it's because they're young, part of it's they're growing so fast, they're like, clumsy puppies. You ever seen it?
Like young giraffes.
Yeah, and you have them try and hold the lightest dumbbell overhead that they can definitely lift, but they can't balance it. It's like all over the place.
No.
So I had this kid do machine overhead presses, and we did it for like 2 months, and his strength went up quite a bit. And then I thought to myself, now it's safe to go to dumbbells, because I mistakenly thought stronger on the machine. Then we moved to dumbbells. We went light. I remember we went light to dumbbells, and I luckily caught it. He almost dropped a dumbbell on his face because he could push it up, but he didn't have the stability. So he went like this.
Especially at the end range like that.
Yeah,
too, right?
I remember it went like this, and he was going to drop it on his head, and I caught it real quick. And I remember thinking like, man, you could press.
Wow, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't remember how much it was. It was something like you could press 100 pounds on the machine, but these 10-pound dumbbells are going to drop on your head. And then I remember thinking like, oh, he can push it. Because if I held his wrist so he didn't fall, you could probably lift twice as much, but it was a lack of stability. So, and that's what free weights give you along. So whatever you lift with a free weight, as you get stronger, you're also going to build the stability to be able to do that exercise because it's free.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And then the last one, this one's the controversial part, but we make this argument all the time because of the factors we listed before, and because of factors we don't yet understand. We haven't yet identified. Free weights tend to build more muscle, and as a side effect, tend to burn more body fat. And there's reasons I can explain why, and then there's reasons I can't. Like, it's hard for me to explain why a barbell squat or a barbell bench press or a barbell row just in my experience training clients and myself and training lots of people, just makes people stronger and build more muscle than the same amount of volume with machines.
Well, it's just they're more demanding. I mean, would be my answer to that.
Well, mine would be the stability and the muscle recruitment point.
I think that's part of it, but if you have someone stand on like a wobbly board with more instability, it's still not as good. It's like there's got to be like a point where
like a bell curve,
diminishing return.
No, I get that. That makes sense because it's not all about. I mean, I guess that's why we made that. All of us as trainers when we were younger made that stability mistake, right? When we learned like the importance of
went too far.
Yeah, went too far, and then that's where the returns start to diminish.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of instability, that's if you address that and you get your muscles to respond sort of subconsciously, going forward, like they get stronger, they know they need to like respond. And now you're adding in the free weights and you're adding more load, you get a louder response. You recruit more muscle fibers.
Yeah.
And so that has to play a factor.
Yeah. And again, there's stuff that's unknown because I've seen exercise scientists debate this and they've got good studies and explanations as to why there's no difference. But when they do polls, and I've seen these polls many times, well, they'll ask strength coaches and they'll say which one's going to produce more muscle and more strength. And it's like 80% always say free weights tend to. And that's my experience as well, generally speaking. But again, this does not mean that machines aren't valuable. And this doesn't mean that machines are sometimes more valuable than free weights. And that's where I think we should go because, again, I want people to know the truth about all this stuff so they can apply it to themselves.
Well, the first thing we can start off with is the same thing that makes them weak also makes them strong, right? The fact that it's so stable and you don't challenge stability has tremendous value when you need that, right?
Totally.
So, example, and that's why I thought it was physical therapy when they first came into the scene was when you had an injury, somebody injured something. Let's say you had, you broke your femur or something on with the hip and like you're doing exercises, you can't do like rehabbing that person, putting them on a barbell squat will be tremendously dangerous. But putting them on a lying leg curl where everything is in a fixed position or a leg extension, like that's way safer. A knee would have been a better example, right? If someone tore their ACL or MCL, putting them on a leg extension, you would do for extended
along
period of
those
time
lines,
before.
let's go exercise to exercise. So I'm going to illustrate this point right here because the less stability in some cases makes it safer. So let's go leg extension. I could theoretically do a free weight leg extension. I could strap a dumbbell to my foot and do a leg extension. But now let's say I'm dealing with someone who, like Adam said, just had, I don't know, one of his lateral ligaments on his knee operated on. So it's not so stable laterally. Maybe some patella issues are going on, but we're rehabbing them. What I don't want is any potential for twisting or for lateral instability with that. All I'm trying to do is strengthen their quad. So a dumbbell strapped to my foot, even though I'm mimicking the same exercise, or I'm still doing a leg extension, because the side to side is not controlled, that's going to limit the hell out of me through that recovery process. Whereas if I put them on a leg extension, there is no issues with the lateral stability. It's all extend and flex. And in that case, it makes it, much safer. Same thing can be true for even an overhead press. If I'm trying to get someone to, like I've worked with clients who've had frozen shoulder, which is really annoying to work through and can be quite tedious. And part of that process is getting them to move through full range of motion first. And we can't do that when there's stability stuff to have to worry about. So sometimes I've even had people, where they hold on to a machine and I lift it for them and they just hold on. I'm just trying to get their shoulder to track properly. Right. If they're stabilizing, it ain't happening. They're frozen. Everything's in a bad position. You want it in
a straight line too, so that way it's controlled. And because of an issue like that, and I dealt with the same thing. You are trying to increase very incrementally new angles of range of motion to gain access to. So you got to be very meticulous and get rid of some of those other variables there that's going to kind of twist and push it to side because it's just not in that capability yet.
Yeah. Or what if you want to work on scapular retraction, right? You want to work on someone's ability to pull their shoulders back, to work on the posture, but they have a low back injury. What are you going to do with free weights? A barbell row, a dumbbell row? Yeah, you could use a bench to support yourself, but look, I've worked with people with back injuries. Having them lay any way prone, even if they're supported, sometimes still is not a good idea. Whereas with the machine, they can sit upright. The pad is in front of their chest, so there's no gravity adding to the resistance, pulling them forward, and they just sit there and stabilize and focus on, scapular retraction. So in those cases, machines are just safer for the lack of stability, which was also the strength, right?
Right,
Free weights had.
I mean, it also has the benefits of being able to isolate, which is kind of similar to that, right? Is to be able to isolate a specific area.
Well, here's where bodybuilders love it.
Yeah.
Because if you're a bodybuilder and you're trying to add more volume to a target muscle, you're also playing this balancing act of overtraining and not adding more volume and work to the rest of the body. So, I could do a, overhead press standing, which is still a press, but man, I'm standing, I'm activating lots of different muscles. I have to stabilize. I'm already teetering on overtraining because I'm adding a lot of volume. Or I could do a seated overhead press where everything's already stable for me. And now I could just target more of the volume to the target muscle. So I can be more specific with where I'm adding the volume, so I don't have that carryover that could potentially compromise, my recovery.
There's a lot of value to that because some of these free weights are very taxing on the central nervous system, and
Totally.
it's the next workout that you're gonna get into the next few days, you're gonna feel the result of that in terms of like overtraining. And so if I can keep adding more volume to specific areas of my body that I'm trying to really build and develop and zoom in on, this is where I would prefer machines in that case.
Oh, this was absolutely necessary for when I was training for shows. I was training 7 days a week, sometimes twice in a day.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm doing all free weight exercises every time.
You'd be fried.
No, I'd be absolutely fried. And there was times when I sitting here talking about machines, I was thinking about a machine I don't think we've ever talked about that I wish we had or I saw more often. You guys ever done the rear delt fly machine where you lay flat on a bench?
Yes.
I love that machine. And I used to.
Now, is this the hammer strength one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
And
you
the pads go on the back of your
lay
arm?
face down. They have like one of those chiropractor mats for your, so you could breathe facing
and you
down.
put your arms underneath
yes,
the pads?
and then it's on your elbows are on the pads, and you could just.
Nothing isolates. That's a crazy one.
I love. That's why and to isolate a rear delt, which is a small muscle, and not
very difficult.
Yeah, and really not overwork or even incorporate much of the rest of the body is really, really tough to do. So, I was able to do things like that. I was able to come back to the gym in the same day, knowing that I already kind of crushed the weights, and then go over and just touch little areas that I wanted to increase the volume, but I didn't want to overstress the rest of the body.
This is why we recommend. So, MAPS Aesthetic is one of our bodybuilder MAPS programs, and it's the programming that Adam used when he became a professional physique competitor. And we put focus sessions in there, right? So you're already hitting the whole body 3 days a week. But according to the program, if you have a weak body part, you can hit it up to 5 days a week. The additional 2 days a week, we recommend in the program use machines, specifically for this reason right here. Easier to isolate, less damaging to the body. Here's an example of easier to isolate. I'll use two exercises that biomechanically are almost identical. A pull-up versus a pull-down. If I want to teach someone to isolate their lats, the pull-down is going to be way easier to do than the pull-up, even if I control for the weight. So even if I put someone on, which by the way, this is cheating now because I'm using a machine, but even if I put someone on a gravitron that lifts their body, they could still isolate their lats better when everything's stable and they're just moving their arms. Yeah. So that the ability to isolate with
that's really because you would say their trunk is locked in. Right?
Everything's locked in.
Yeah. Because when you do a pull up, you can't help but sway a little bit more.
Skill. More involved. You get more muscles wanting to contribute.
There's just much more skill. Even a chest press, right? If I'm trying to teach someone to feel just the chest working, they're going to get that done easier with the chest press machine than they will with the bench press, even though the biomechanics theoretically are identical, right? So the ability to isolate and target, which, by the way, this is oftentimes I would use machines for correctional exercise because I'm trying to teach someone to connect to a muscle. And the free weights are just so demanding, even easy exercises for them, just demanding in terms of movement, that I just couldn't get them to isolate or target that muscle. I put them on a machine. Here, this machine's going to do all this other work for you. Now just feel this area. And then they'd feel it, and then eventually we'd graduate and move to the free weight version of that.
Would you say, too, some of the benefits of the machines, because I know this wasn't on our list, but I'm thinking about it right now, is just the novelty of it, right? So there's only so many ways you can do like a dumbbell shoulder
Oh yeah,
press.
there's so many different.
But you can do that in like weird
because of stimulus from different angles.
Right, from different angles. It's still an overhead press,
Yeah.
but the angle that you're doing it from is different. There's got to be some value to that also.
Totally, absolutely. Now the next one, this one is one of the main reasons why I would use machines in my training, and that's that some exercises are just impossible to do with free weights. Some exercises would not exist if machines didn't exist. For example, a tricep press down, okay? It sounds very silly, but that exercise would not exist if machines, though you would have to literally, and by the way, there were some bodybuilders that tried doing this. They would get those gravity boots and hang upside down and hold dumbbells and then try and do
That's ridiculous.
like a tricep, which obviously is like
I
way
think
too much going on.
I think a better way of saying this is not impossible because I know there's some nerd in here listening right now. Yes, I could do all those with free weight.
Yeah.
It's just incredibly less
ineffective and
You have
inefficient.
to get insanely creative.
Yes.
is
It's
what
just
I would say.
Yeah, leg curls is another one. I mean, I know you could do physio ball leg curls, and I love physio ball leg curls.
It's not the same.
It's
You're
not the
not
same.
loaded. You know, you got to stabilize quite a bit, and so I think leg curls is definitely one that I mean, you can really get those hamstrings from a different angle.
Yeah. What about a leg press? Like, name one free weight leg exercise that doesn't involve the upper body having to somewhat stabilize, right?
Yeah.
With a leg press, your upper body is in the chair. You ain't moving. The only thing that's moving is your legs.
Yeah.
For rehab purposes, this has real value. I've actually used leg press for rehab. And then for recovery value, like somebody hammered deadlifts and squats is not important to them because their legs are already developed or they've had all these hard workouts and they're tired and like, but today's leg day, should I barbell squat? Ooh, that's going to tax the shit out of your CNS. Why don't we try a leg press? Because everything's locked into place, and it's an easier way to.
Well, also if you have discrepancies left to right too, if you've just come back from rehab and an injury, and like you can build and develop safely with one leg, leg pressing at a time to really kind of get them both to respond somewhat at an equal level and build and develop that way.
We didn't say it, and it kind of I think falls back in the isolate thing too. Is the priming benefits with machines versus free weights
that's
too.
a good point.
That's something that when I'm looking to target a very specific muscle group and I want to prime it before I go do the big compound lift, I'm always doing that with machine. I'm not doing that I'm not priming with a free weight exercise that's going to be more taxing and recruit other muscles.
That's how I use the abductor machine.
Yeah.
When I had clients that needed to work on their abductors, sometimes I'd have them do an abductor machine so they could feel the abductors activate. Then we go do our squats, and they would feel
right,
much more
because
stable.
otherwise you'd use rubber bands, but that's not as accessible. So machines would be perfect.
Yeah, and yes, you can do that with bands and whatnot, but you loading an abductor. Now I'm not. I know I've made fun of abductor machines, but in some ways they're superior. Try loading bands to really develop that kind of strength.
Yeah, it's
abductor machine, you can load the hell out of it.
Yes.
and you can build lots of strength in that area.
Yeah.
So now I don't say it's perfect, but I don't think you can replace it in that way. That's what I'm saying. Leg extension, we talked about that. Really can't do a leg extension. Now, I like sissy squats
with the dumbbell is just weird.
Yeah.
I've seen people do it.
Yeah, I like sissy squats better than leg extensions for developing the quads, but sissy squats are not appropriate for a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that is way too hard. It's not going to work. You're going to have to go do leg extensions if you really want to isolate, the quadriceps. And then most cable exercises, like if I'm doing chops from different angles,
standing chest fly.
Yeah, like all that kind of stuff. Like because free weights, you only oppose gravity, which is going from top to bottom. I can't do free weight exercises necessarily with resistance side to side, or from up to down, right? So with machines, those are just exercises you could. Now I'm going to go off a little bit on a little bit of a left curve here. There are certain machines that I just find superior to the free weight alternative. Like I love dumbbell pullovers. I put them in every program, most programs. I do them myself, but I'm not going to lie. The Nautilus pullover machine I have yet to do a free weight version of that exercise that just feels the same.
I'll make the case for flies. I think flies on cables are superior. The ability for you to have maximum tension at both ends.
And the squeeze.
Well, that's
in the
what it
middle.
is. You feel the drop off almost immediately once you get, a couple inches.
Totally. That's I mean, dumbbell flies are great still. I'm not saying they're not good. I definitely utilize them a lot. But I think cable flies are superior because of the ability for you to do that, and because the way the origin insertion is on the chest, your ability to manipulate all the angles and stuff that you can do with a cable fly. You just very, very difficult to do that.
You can manipulate the angle while you're doing it.
Yeah.
You could literally do a lower pec, mid pec, upper pec, all in the same set.
And like I said, because of the way the pec is, there's a lot of benefit to being able to do that.
Oh yeah, that became one of the most popular machines, the first ones. In fact, pumping iron, I think that's the only, that and a low cable row, those are the only machines I think you saw on a T-bar row. That was it. Yeah. Those are the only machines you saw him use in that whole documentary or whatever. The next one, we talked about this already, which is easy volume, less stress on the body. If you want to add volume to your workout, get a little bit more of a pump, add different angles. Machines allow you to do this easier than free weights because they're less stressful on the body. They just are. Like if I go and do a back machine workout with 3 different exercises, even if I'm doing compound lifts or whatever, it's just not as taxing on the body. I'm going to recover faster. It's going to be shorter recovery period. So if I'm like, if I'm training hard and I'm pushing my body limit and I want to add an additional 5 sets to my routine, I could either do 2 sets of a free weight exercise or 1 set, or I could add 5 sets of machines, which has some value.
Well, this is how I use machines now more than ever and it's more so actually when I overreach. Right, so I build my routine, right, especially right now where my training volume is lower. It's very MAPS anabolic-esque, but we openly admit all the time that even being experienced trainers, we still all have a tendency to overreach. So if I'm getting ready to go into day 2 of MAPS anabolic, and I've got all these barbell movements that I have planned or written out to do, and on Monday I decided to press some PR numbers or overreach or do a little more than I probably should have, and I'm really sore still, I might pivot and replace some of those barbell movements on that Wednesday workout for machines. So I find it really valuable for when I've overreached, instead of increasing the risk and doing even more damage when I'm still that sore, I'll make a pivot and go to like a machine workout.
Yeah, if I'm just looking for a pump with minimal damage, it's machines. Always. It's just a lot easier. In fact, I can train, just to illustrate this even further, I can train to failure more often on machines than I can with free weights because of the damage
Less
difference.
damage, for sure.
Less damage. Like I can go to failure on a leg press, on a machine press, a machine row, and I would say if a 10 was the free weight failure comparable exercises, machines would be like a 6 or a 7. That's a pretty big difference. You're talking a third less damage the body is what I experience.
Well, and even from a hybrid perspective, like I love training for performance and love compound lifts, and to be able to have compound lifts and do those first and then follow it up with machines to add more volume, so I can build and develop my muscles a little bit more effectively. Like I love to incorporate machines, in the mix.
Now this last one is my favorite, and this one I think people don't appreciate enough. But if you're advanced and you love to train, you pay attention to this. You can get real creative. Machines allow you to have an adjustable resistance curve. So earlier I talked about dumbbell pullovers versus the Nautilus pullover machine. Here's why I think I like the pullover machine more than dumbbells. When I'm across a bench doing a dumbbell pullover, most of the resistance is at the stretch.
Yeah.
Once I get up here, there's like no resistance. The resistance is my tricep supporting the dumbbell. I have no lat squeeze in that position. I have to actively try to squeeze my lats, but it's not the same. When you do a pullover machine, the resistance is all the way through, and when I come down to the bottom, I have to hold the squeeze as hard as I held the stretch, which makes it way more effective.
Well, this is the case I was trying to make with the crossover.
Yes.
Right? The cable crossover is the same way. When you're doing a dumbbell chest fly, I mean, the real benefit is in that stretched position. When you as soon as you get, like Justin said, just a few inches the other direction, it's, you're no longer opposing gravity at the same level that you were in the complete stretch position. So it's not, the strength curve is completely different. Where in cables, it's consistent.
It's the same weight all the way through.
All the way through, and I think that's a tremendous value is that point.
Now here's where it gets real fun, and this is where I'm talking to more advanced lifters. There's lots of machines. You'll see a pulley that is pulling either a strap or a cable, and and most people don't touch this because they don't understand it. They don't know what to do. But you're able to adjust the strength curve on the pulley, and they'll have little places that you could do this. This is where it gets real cool. So I'll use a preacher curl as an example. So, there'd be a preacher curl machine. So my elbows are sitting on the pad. I'm doing the curl. And what I can do with the pulley, and what'll happen is you'll see the pulley and it'll be funny shaped. It won't be a perfect circle. It'll kind of be oval, okay? So what that tells you is at some point, there's gonna be more resistance on the pulley than at other places. And so what you could do with some of these machines is I could make the preacher curl heaviest at the bottom. So this is where it's hardest, and then it gets easier at the top. Or I can make it heaviest at the top. So it's light at the bottom, heavy on the squeeze. And there's a lot of machines that allow you to do this. Most people don't touch the pulleys because they have no idea.
Well, and by the way, this now makes that exercise novel.
Super novel.
If you always do a preacher curl on a standard, preacher machine, that's the same strength curve that you can't manipulate. I mean, and that's all you do, right? So you do that all the time. You simply messing with that now makes that exercise novel. And we talk about the importance of novelty when training. That in itself already gives more benefit for building muscle.
And now one of the reasons why, we'll go back to hammer strength. One of the reasons why hammer strength became so popular wasn't because you could load it with free weights. The fact that you load it with free weights or a weight stack doesn't matter. What hammer strength did really well is they knew what strength curve would feel the best, and that's how they designed the machine. So for example, one of the more popular hammer strength machines is the chest press. Okay, so you're sitting in the chest press thing and you push and then the weight moves up and it moves down. The resistance and the stretch position is the lightest. The more you push out, the heavier it gets. Now, people like this because we tend to be weakest at the bottom, strongest at the top.
Yeah, so you stack more weight on there.
So you stack weight, and it feels good to get heavy here and light here, right? If you look at their row machines, you'll also see a similar design. Shoulder press, similar type of design where it's lighter at the bottom, heavier at the top. And this is why people like them, because the strength curve felt really cool on the body. It felt really good. So I like hammer strength, but I really like, and again, nobody does this, but you go to a gym, there's selectorized equipment where you can adjust the pulley. You can make your leg extensions heavy at the bottom, at the top. You can make back exercises heavier at the bottom or the top or the middle. You could take an exercise, do 6 sets, and it'd be 6 different strength curves. I used to do this all the time, and it feels really awesome. You can't do that with free weights. With free weights,
it has to be a different movement. It's a different exercise at that point.
There's no, how I would adjust the strength curve with free weights? I'd have to move my body. So I could do a lateral standing, or I could do a lateral, laying sideways on an incline bench.
You got to go against gravity somehow in a weird way.
Well, and it's actually impossible with certain, you can't do bicep curls that way. You can't manipulate the strength curve with dumbbells.
No, you'd have to lay on a bench and do something weird, or I don't know.
Yeah, you can get the spider curl angle, but to come from top to bottom and get
you have to hang upside down.
Yeah. So, which is not happening, right? Or that's pretty ridiculous.
You imagine doing curls hanging down, your head will explode.
Instagram people will do it, but
yeah.
But huge benefits though to certain muscles like that you don't get a chance to manipulate that, and machines provide that ability to do that. So again, another example of where machines can be superior.
Are there certain machines that you, maybe more so you, Adam, or there's certain machines you just you said the rear delt one? Are there any others that you just love? Like if you see it, you're like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, no, the rear delt fly. I mean, I love a pec deck type of machine, or cable crossover.
You like the hammer strength row? Every time we would work out, I love,
and that is actually the opposite of what you said with the.
It was lighter at the bottom.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's heavy to get it going, but then as you get it in, it's lighter, and you get the squeeze. And so, if you had enough strength to get it off the initial momentum going, then you get this great squeeze, and you could really load it. I used to get an incredible pump on my back from that. The ISO row, the hammer strength ISO row.
Dorian Yates made that one popular.
Oh, I love. And they have so many handle positions. So if I'm
anything
more
that's
upper,
chest supported like that for rows is appreciated.
Yeah, great machine.
I have a few, and they're all kind of weird, obscure ones, but that's because you can't do them necessarily free weights. Like a donkey calf raise Otherwise I have to tell like a guy to sit on my back while I'm doing this. Like, I'm not going to do that.
A guy? Why not?
Yeah, why not a couple girls?
I mean, I guess you could too, but
that's what I would do.
I feel like as weird as it would sound, I feel like a guy would understand more than, hey, would you mind
Bro,
sitting on
get
my
over
back?
here.
While I do
They would probably receive it more or better in the gym than
They'll
a
be like,
couple
"Excuse me,
girls.
you pervert. No. So hammer strength,
jump in on this
donkey
set.
calf raise, tibialis raise. There's a tibialis raise machine. I used to love using that with clients when they had shin splints, because tibialis raises without that, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
You know, you have to stand on your heels on a block. People slide down and it just doesn't work. There's a tibialis
You used to
raise.
do those against the wall, and it's a little weird.
And then there's a Gold's, the one on Monterey, and I only ever saw this machine in a powerlifting magazine. Ed Cohn, who's one of the greatest powerlifters of all time, talked about using this hammer strength grip strengthening machine. You ever seen it? Where you load the plates and it's got like handles like this, and you squeeze it with your hands, and you could do one finger at a time and do all kinds of crazy things on it.
Wow.
If I see that in a gym,
Yeah, I'd love to use that.
I'm using that every single time.
That'd be cool.
So there you have it. Those are the reasons why machines are sometimes better than free weights. Look, you can find us on social media. You can find Justin on Instagram at MindPumpJustin, Adam at MindPumpAdam. You can find me on Twitter at MindPumpSal. Also, we have free guides that can help you with almost any fitness goal. You can find all of those, and again, they're all free at mindpumpfree.com.